The all-new Brackett Show. Brackett Show. And now, here's Chris Brackett.
It's November 8th. I'll bet right now, as this is hitting the airwaves and out there on the YouTube world, out there on all the platforms, I'll bet you I'm dragging a big buck out.
Ooh.
Might be mine. 90% chance it's mine. If not, it's somebody's, because November 8th is the day. November 8th is the day of all days. Every single year across the country, you've got ruts happening that bucks are going on and off of lockdown. They've been with girls. We've had hot temperatures up till now. And November 8th is sweetness. I think it's Jeff Lindsay's favorite day. He's a big buck slayer, him and his dad over in Iowa. And I just have had incredible luck on about the 8th. And like a day or two, this is that kind of that peak that you find me that I talk about, 7th, 8th, 9th, kind of take a break a little bit, hit it hard again. And then got that full moon coming the 13th through the 15th. So I'm gearing up for that. There's a lot of us that have been discouraged up till now because of the heat and the weather. And I feel like I've been sweating since April. And I know I always say it, but I'm sick of the heat. And we haven't had any rain. And then it's a monsoon. And it's a wild time to be alive, but it is sweet November.
Yeah, man. And I anticipate that there's probably a number of guys that are checking this out right now who have been experiencing the same thing, right? Like they hopefully have been able to get out. And the weather has been, like you said, just a roller coaster, from
really
so dry to then I don't know. Does water sit up on the ground when it's that dry, or is it starting to sink in?
It'll soak in really, really fast. But the places that are just dirt that it doesn't have anything growing is just slicker and snot.
Yeah.
Like you're going to find people in ditches, people trying to get deer out of cornfields. And, you might not hunt your back stand because you got to walk across a chisel plowed field. That's what happens in agriculture type areas like Illinois and Iowa is you'll get the farmer that'll come in and let's say he's got beans and he'll combine all the beans and then he'll go in with anhydrous for corn and he'll rip up that. And sometimes you'll do some deep tillage when he has a cornfield. And if these farmers have recreational tillage time, they're going to be ripping up these fields that be black dirt and be swampy and messy and whatever. And that's something to pay attention to for late season, because these fields that have been tilled under because it's been so warm and been so dry, those aren't going to be where the deer concentrate on, because all their little leftover food that the combines leave, they're all going to be tilled under. Those are all the things I'm paying attention to while driving up and down the road, because if they've got a field that hasn't been messed with and it's still got grain kind of left over, they're going to rather eat in that field than to have the one that's been tilled over and hard to walk on and stuff. Those are old tricks you got to pay attention to when you're driving around.
You're so wise. You're so wise, Chris. That's what everyone's thinking in this moment, too.
Big bull on the hill. But that's what you got to pay attention to, because not always do you have food plots, and not always do you have food plots that work. Like this year, tough deal. You have a little bit of clover, a little bit of alfalfa, good early, standing beans, and I guess mowed corn is like putting candy out for a baby. That seems to work pretty dang good. I don't have enough corn to even be able to mow it down and give the deer exactly what they need to get the super attraction going here in Illinois. And so I'm a victim of waiting till the deer decide that they're cold enough and they're skinny enough and they're hungry enough to key in on the food sources, because I'm a food plot guy. I think a lot of us food plot guys are feeling a little bit of pressure that we've made it all the way to November, deep into November rut, and the deer aren't on the food plots. That's just a matter of hot weather with rain and getting all this little growth here in November that we got. Just rained the other day, which is today while we're filming, and you've got this little bit of rain with this little bit of heat, and it's going to make all this stuff that really hasn't frosted out or hibernated yet is just going to grow that little ½ inch. These deer are going to walk around and eat all these little buds and things. You don't think about stuff like that in November because it normally doesn't happen. But if we were to walk out right now, even in your yard, you're going to need to mow again.
Yeah, I know.
And it's November 8th, and it's like, what are we doing? Well, if the temperatures if the temperatures aren't cold enough, the stuff's just going to continue to grow. That's why they call it cool season grasses, and deer will eat cool season grasses and little buds, and then they never have to leave the thick cover. So if you're having trouble finding big bucks right now, you got to go crash the timber and get in there. You got to go be the trail camera and get in the thickets and find the little briars. And, these Russian olives and autumn olives and all these little green leaves with little red berries, they don't even fall off until it freezes so hard near Thanksgiving that they turn yellow and fall off. And that is when you lose those leaves off those autumn olive trees and those Russian olive trees, immediately these deer will key on to green and key on to food. That is when food plots are fire. That's my little rant.
Yeah.
Well, a little rant.
I mean, so obviously you're pretty amped up, but I feel like we still might need a wake-up call.
Need a wake-up call. Hunting Day Coffee from Steve and April. Hunting Day Coffee. This one is a little Whiskey Willow Reserve, and it's coffee for hunters, made by hunters, bringing you the wake-up call. And here is the wake-up call.
Wakey, wakey, wakey.
Wake up.
Hey, Chris and Chris. This is Josh from Indiana.
What up,
My
Josh?
question is I got a question for both Chris's. First question is, Chris, when you're talking, why do you always keep your face down for it? Look up, man. You don't need to look down. And
I think he's talking to me.
You?
Yeah,
for
I think so.
Chris, Brackett,
Yeah.
the can call. How do you feel, or what's your opinion on the can call? I've got 3 different ones. Of course, 2 of them's for supposed to be great for all phases of the rut. Then the other one's just a fawn bleat. What's your opinion on those, and how often do you use those? Thanks. Happy hunting. Good luck to you guys, and good work on the shows. Keep them up. Love watching.
All right. I think I need to answer the first question.
You're looking at stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that is a simple answer. A little kind of like behind the curtain, if you will. So like, obviously I'm talking occasionally, but you can kind of see some of it sitting around, but there's a bunch of stuff in front of me, and right here is I'm monitoring everything. And so when I'm looking
On a screen,
yeah. So it looks like I'm looking down, and also over here I have another one, and then there's several screens up here. So I'm looking all around. If I were to actually look Chris in the eye, I'd be looking up
I'd
like
be
this.
here.
Yeah.
I'd be here and you'd be here.
And this would look really ridiculous.
So I try to look at this wide camera and this camera.
Yeah, it's like movie magic going on. So first off, I'm glad that you're paying close enough attention and you're watching.
Josh.
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 You know that's happening. It is not me being bashful by any means, but
he's keeping me on the rails.
Yeah.
Do you know how hard that is?
But I'm definitely going to make sure that the people can see my face. I can look at this camera more often if you want to see me. So yeah, if you're watching, check it out.
He looks much younger than he is, by the way.
Yeah, I
thought he was like a late
17.
20s.
Yeah.
He's older than that.
But anyway, so I mean, hopefully that answers the question.
Yep.
I will try just for you. I'll try to make sure that I look into that camera. You can just stare into my eyes occasionally.
There you go.
But yeah, then why don't you answer a real hunting question?
Okay, so Josh's question from Indiana was, first, why do you look down? We answered that. Number 2 was what?
He was asking about the can call.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Bleat. It's a bleat, so it's a bleat. So, like, you get a can call, and you could take this, and
Is it like 2 of them that you kind of move them?
So it's like a diaphragm.
Yeah.
Remember the little kid toys?
I think I know what call we're talking about.
Where you would turn it over as a little kid, and it would go.
Yep. Yeah.
Right? And they make different sizes. You make a little one for your pocket. They make a bigger one, all marketing, like all of those different sounds. If you practice at home, again, just close your nose with your fingers and just like that is the call. So don't be scared.
There's literally deer like pawing at the door to the studio right now. He's just bringing them all in.
And so, different frequencies, different animals. I think paying attention to whitetails out there in the world, in the food plots and being around them, the most I ever hear bleeding, I heard it a lot here November 1, that morning where I had all those does socializing and fighting and all that stuff in there around the acorns and the greenbriers and in the open timber on the edge of the switchgrass and the food plot, was a lot of fawns trying to find their mom. Just real short. And it's almost like a meow, dude. And can calls. Here's a little trick for can calls. Do you know that you can blow into them? So first off, you have a can call, and if anybody's not familiar, it's a little circular, I think Primos makes one and HS makes one, and you put your thumb over the call and turn it over, and it goes, meow. I try to do it 3 times. 3 of them, and so a lot of times that is just when a buck is searching. He's lost his doe, and he is intently listening throughout the woods. And when he loses her and he's in search mode, a lot of times turning that can over and just making some type of deer sound, a socialized sound, just to get their attention will be enough to have them cut and come your direction. That's the one reason why I would use it. And to me, it doesn't matter which call you have. And here's why, Josh. Here's why. You can take that call and you can move that little sliding diaphragm that's in that call. You can actually hold that little hole that you put your thumb over up to your mouth, and you can blow in it. And you can move the wafer that's inside, that's using the compression, that's inside that tube. You can actually move it to different parts in that can, like either down and blow into it, or you can move it up and you can get different pitches. You don't need all these different calls. If you're going to use a bleat, that's the kind of bleat you do. And the cool part is, by using it and blowing in that the one little hole at the bottom instead of like the cheese grater front, the opening where it's got all the holes, you can actually vary your call by using it more like a, and it'll make it longer and shorter, and you get a lot more use out of this one call, not intended to be used like that, but it is the best way to use it, is to grab your little can call, blow on that end, and it'll just go. You can do whatever you want, and you're just going to watch what that deer wants to respond to. I don't do a lot of blind calling, whether it be a grunt or a snort wheeze or whatever. A lot of times if I've got deer in close and I'm getting ready to get out of a stand, here's a really great Uncle Bubby tip for you in the rut right now. If I'm getting ready to get out of a stand about 10, 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning and I haven't had any action, I've kind of, I can see quite a ways, but I've got maybe have a thicket around, and I know within 15 minutes I'm going to get out of that tree. One of the main ways that I have had really good success in finding out, let's say there's a big buck that I can't see, and I either want to scare off a smaller buck so I can get out of my tree, or I want to attract the larger buck. What I'll do is I will either hit my antlers together and or do a snort wheeze, because what happens is if there's a big buck kind of back in there and he's hanging out or he's bedded down and you're going to spook him because you're going to get out of your tree anyways, at that point I will go ahead and rattle. If a buck doesn't show up from the rattle, short, fast, hard sequence, and then after that I will wait and I will just give him a I always get that little at the end. It's realism. And that is a challenge call to bucks. I will do a snort wheeze or do 2, like a snort wheeze and then wait about 60 seconds, do another one and get ready. Normally, if there's a bigger animal, more mature animal in the woods or around you within hearing distance, they're going to break and come to your direction. And then you're either going to shoot them, or a lot of times it'll push them off because there's a challenge threat. But if they're in earshot distance, doing that is a great way to kind of clear the air and go, okay, there's nothing close. Now I get out of my stand and go back to the truck. It's one of my little fail-safe, like you sit in that stand going, should I get out? Should I stay up a little longer? Should I stay out and go, okay, I'm going to rattle. and then I'm going to do 2 snort wheezes, and then I'm going to watch for 20 minutes. And at the end of that 20 minutes, I'm going to get up. That's a great tip for right now as you're listening on the 8th to kind of, I don't know, it's kind of a way to trigger some response or to go, I can be convinced I tried everything right before I got down.
Yeah.
So that's a good way, to kind of, I guess, answer Josh's question, because he's got all these different calls, these different can calls, is just pick one that you like and then mess around with it by blowing in it rather than turning it over. So
it's funny. We were my wife and I. We were listening a few episodes ago, just listening to the broadcast. I think we were actually seeing if we could get Alexa to play the show, which worked. Which if you go Alexa play, this is probably going to set off someone's Alexa like Echo or something. But I said Alexa play the Brackett Show Whitetails Land in Life on Amazon Music. Anyway, it started playing. Well, anyway, so we're listening, and then you do a snort wheeze, and Jessica was like, "What?
What is that?"
What? Because she couldn't see. Not that even when you see it, it necessarily makes sense. But you are a master with making,
animal noises.
Animal noises.
People love the snort wheeze
with your mouth.
I used to leave my Facebook lives by going, and listen, they make calls where you like blow into a. You got to practice and master the snort wheeze. It's really them sucking in. So they go, they actually, and this gets me into a crazy story, dude.
Okay,
I got to tell you about the story. What were you gonna say?
No, you're good. I mean, go ahead.
Well, so the deer actually suck in. They go, they get their breath, and then they out, right? And deer don't have upper teeth, so. When they don't have upper teeth, it's like picture their bottom teeth up against their top lip.
You need to be watching this.
That is what's happening.
Okay.
They go, and that's what that sound is. That little bit of slobber, they're normally worked up, and they're taking their bottom teeth and pushing it against their top, which they don't have any top teeth. So it's like they took out their dentures, and that's that little. Okay. The other day when I was hunting and I killed my big buck, I had sat, let's say the night before or 2 nights before in the same stand. I went in daylight to check this stand, got up for a really fast hunt, like 30-mile-an-hour winds. And I'm sitting there, and down back behind me is my giant sanctuary down over the hill. It's on the French Creek. It's got all this miscanthus and switchgrass and pines, and it's just a nasty thicket that rolls for 25 acres. It's just awesome, but you can't go down in it. And I'm sitting up there for a little bit. I was telling that story of how I heard that deer roar November 1st, and from like 300 yards away, just he made this big roar. And I'm sitting up in this stand, and I'm pretty fired up. I'm like, it could happen at any moment. Big buck could come out of this brush in front of me. And down behind me, I keep hearing, and I'm like, that's not a roar. And that's not a raccoon. And I don't know what that is, but I don't think I have any Sasquatches on my farm. So I just dismissed it. I was like, well, maybe it sounds like something's drowning. This goes on. Every 10 minutes, and it would go, and I'm like, listen, there is something in this creek drowning. Like, there is something bad happening. I've heard every single noise you can hear in the woods, from Alaska, Maine, Texas, California, Mexico, New Zealand. I've heard them all. I've never heard anything like this. And so my first thought in my brain goes like, are there 2 bucks locked up drowning in my creek? Fair, right?
I suppose, yeah.
Super fair. Or are like these raccoons just losing their minds and partying or whatever down there? I dismiss it. I'm like, I have to concentrate on what's in front of me. I'm going to quit standing up, turning around behind me, and looking in the brush, whatever. Dude, this thing starts getting closer by 50 yards and 60 yards and, like in increments. And I just keep hearing. And I'm like, that's not a grunt. That's not a growl, but it kind of sounds like it. All of a sudden, this deer shows up at this scrape down to my left, and this deer shows up, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's a little buck. It's a about 120-inch buck, and I didn't pay any attention. And then it sounds like it's in the stand with me. I hear again. This is what I hear. And I look down with my binoculars, and there is a buck. It is a deer making this noise. The deer has its face caved in from a fight.
Oh, my goodness.
And he has a real problem with sinus. Like he's got a sinus thing or a deviated septum or something.
Nice.
And this thing is walking around the woods for the next hour next to me, and he sounds like he's a pig. And he's walking around, and he's just taking his time eating acorns. I was audibly laughing, going, oh my gosh. And he's fine. He's wagging his tail, eating. He could eat fine. But you'll see on this picture that he's got his nose broke from a fight or something.
He's like a bulldog.
Yeah, dude, exactly like a bulldog. It's like a little bulldog trying to breathe.
Yeah,
like
there's
that's
like
exactly
a little bulldog
what it was.
inside the deer's mouth.
Yep. And
Yeah.
so that was my funny story.
That is funny.
That was my funny deer
honestly.
calling
Well,
story.
you were in a stand, but I was thinking, and when you started the story, that you were talking about being in a blind, and I was like, wait, was Jody asleep? Was she snoring behind you?
No, that's a true story, but this was I told you I'd heard every sound. Definitely my wife snoring in a blind.
You would know.
Happens every year. Every time we go to the blind, and we got the new diamond blind. This one, if I take her, or when we go, we got plans to go. But the diamond is just going to put her to sleep because it's like so soundproof and it's snoozy for sure. I'm going to bring her a blanket because there's no reason to watch her like bob her head, trying to stay in that
get a
chair.
pillow
I'm
so
just
she
going
doesn't
to
hit
give
her
her a
head.
pillow
Yeah.
and a blankie and let her curl up there. Hopefully, by Thanksgiving, it starts getting cold and the deer are starting to hit food plots. But that's a fun question that brought up the story that I wanted to remember to tell you, that this deer had his little face,
That's funny.
deviated septum or something.
So we're going to get into some more questions, but, you're talking about calls, and you've shared about a lot of different things like broadheads and bows and all sorts of equipment. So my question for you is if you could either bring back some sort of hunting item, apparel product, whatever, or create something that doesn't exist. So you can choose one or the other, but like, if you could bring something back or create something new, what is that item that you wish you had?
Well, they don't make boots like they once did. My favorite thing in the world was to wear a pair of Rocky corn stalkers made out of cordura that they literally lasted 20 years. Yeah. They were the coolest.
They probably went out of business because they made a bunch and then no one had to buy new ones.
Probably. Well, I think they just kind of made a turn, but they don't make boots like they used to. But if you're listening to this, the one thing that I think that I would bring to market that's not in the hunting world, and, I've seen some crossover stuff that I think some people are doing. I know Scentlock messed around a little bit with it, but Pat and them guys don't hardly talk to me anymore and don't send me any clothes. That's my
yeah. So I'll get a little violin.
Yeah. So I don't get to try out any of that stuff. But I said about eight or 9 years ago, I said, well, here's the categories that if I was in the market and I was I was a entrepreneurial make product thing. Here's the categories I'd use. 1, electric, 7 volt or 12 volt. I forget. I think it's 7 volt. Rechargeable batteries, made by Gerbing. Okay. Gerbing, thewarmingstore.com. We are not affiliated. This is where I buy my stuff. There is not a boot on the market, not a Sorel, not a Mickey boot, not boot insulators. There's not a warm boot on the planet that will, keep your feet warm if you have bad circulation, or you got a bad back and your blood doesn't get down, or your feet just get cold. My feet have gotten cold my whole life. Tiffany Lakoski one time called me after I did this post about there wasn't boots that were, cold weather boots that were made good enough to keep my feet warm. She said, well, here's the deal. You need to go to thewarmingstore.com, and they are these black and red boot, sock. They call them sock liners that have a cord that runs up to these rechargeable batteries. They're like $300, dude. They keep your feet 120 degrees. I keep like 6 batteries on me. And I turn, as soon as I get to the tree or the blind, I wear light boots to keep me from fumbling and making a lot of noise. And I turn them on. I wear a wool sock over top, and I just wear my like lightweight boots. And I turn this sock on. My feet are 120 degrees all season. Every time I'm in the woods, 120 degrees.
Nice.
On this insulator. It's the number one product that I need. I mean, I can kill a deer with a rock, but if I'm too cold to be there to throw the rock, we got a problem. So my number one is Gerbing socks from thewarmingstore.com. And then I got a vest. I got a vest that I got these little batteries, same batteries for, that I can wear less clothes and then hit these batteries and do it. I'm 120 degrees.
So you're not saying inventing something or bringing something back. You're just saying this is one of your favorite things that's out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of inventing something because it's not in the hunting world.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, like, so
I understand
snowmobilers.
Yeah. So we need to brand it like for hunting.
Let's go.
Oh,
I mean,
if you're watching or listening, well,
if somebody out there has something like this that you are doing, or anybody knows the Gerbing company, I think they're like out of Sweden or something. They're not from here.
I mean, that sounds. I can see there being a Sweden.
Did you like that? That was my good guess.
I mean, so I'm a quarter Swedish.
It's your blonde hair.
This is really silly, but I know like almost no Swedish except a Swedish tongue twister.
Oh boy, say it.
Okay.
That is actual words?
Yep.
That is
777 C6 semen.
Oh my gosh!
In Swedish. Let me preface.
Sweden?
Let me clarify. It's not in the United States. Let me clarify that I have been told that is what that is, but I've never actually like cross-referenced with someone who actually speaks Swedish. So I was noticing we are having some other countries that are checking out the show. So if there's someone in Sweden.
Send us a message.
Or you could be in the United States.
And
but if you speak
own
Swedish,
Gerbing, I'm your new best
even
friend.
better. Look at this. Look at you bringing it around full circle. Yes, amazing. Okay, well, anyway.
The only thing I know from Sweden is glug, and it's a Christmas drink made with a lot of alcohol. And my Uncle Duke is Swedish.
Okay.
Carlson. And my Uncle Duke, they used to make glug, and that's what they would do.
Yeah, my grandma was Swedish. So
there was all kinds of like raisin stuff in it. I just remember it being like, they were like, we're having glug on Christmas, and they'd have like one half of a glass of, this glug, and they would all be passed out. They had to deal with me running around as a kid.
That would keep your feet warm too, right? Like keep your whole body warm.
Keep your whole body warm for a little bit. So that's I think what product that everybody needs to kind of know about. Another product is that I wanted to talk about was I wanted to do like a Brackett review on these Beast Broadheads, because I know everybody has been freaking out. Like, I posted pictures on Facebook and Insta of me and Kirk's bucks with the Beast Broadhead. I shot mine with a 2-inch Beast Broadhead, and Kirk shot his with a 2.3. Here's what I can tell you. The Beast Broadhead is so sharp that they are the scariest broadhead I've ever touched in my life. They are definitely a 2024 new century, new creation broadhead that you can get like grizzly sticks or like iron wills or something. You can make a fixed blade really sharp. This is its own creature. This is a expandable broadhead.
Yeah, it's not fixed. Yeah.
Yep. This is an expandable broadhead that has the flexibility with bone evading stuff to go through a shoulder or go around a big bone. You're not, let me be clear about this. You're not buying a Beast Broadhead to cut a 7-inch hole in the side of a deer like a slap cut Rage or something, Rage Extreme like they made back in the day. Listen, I had a lot of people say, well, Beast is paying you or they sent you free stuff. It'll go a long way. Listen to me. I have been on a crusade for years to find a new broadhead because Rage Extreme took the good stuff off the market. They don't sell Rage Extreme yellow and red chisel tips, and they haven't for 5 years. Why? I don't know. They changed people couldn't figure out how to use the ring. People couldn't do whatever, but the Rages were never sharp. Like, I could touch them. I could do all kinds of stuff and grab the blades. They're never going to cut me. I will not touch the blade on these new technology beasts. A Rage would hit the animal, and the old design, not the new crap. The new crap is crap. Like, it's crap. They're using you can't even puncture the skin with the point. Like, there was a lot of people who's like, oh, he's just doing whatever pays him. No, Rage didn't pay me that much. And there's a lot of years that they didn't pay me anything. And this was before these big companies kind of took it over. They have screwed up by getting away from the collars. They have screwed up by messing up the engineering with the no collar design. They're not the same Broadhead. So people were like, well, I can't believe he went to a new one. I never thought I'd leave Rage. Rage screwed themselves. They screwed up. They started making garbage. They should have gone back to the original thing that brought them there, which giant Rage Extreme Broadheads with a big collar on the back. And they would and they would still be the number one choice, but they're the ones that shot themselves in the foot. And so if you're looking for a giant slap cut, they don't make them anymore. It doesn't work like that anymore for this big Broadhead that throws blood all over and whatever. The closest thing that I can find while shopping for a new Broadhead is the Beast Broadhead, like the 2.3. I told Bomar and the guys that make it at Bomar Archery, and David and them and Greg, if they made a 2.5 or a 3, I'd shoot that. I mean, that would give you that big cut. These things are so sharp when they blew through Kirk's animal that they made about a 2-inch cut straight through, avoided the cutting the ribs instead of cutting them, blew right through the other side. And there's so many people out there that are like, well, you didn't get a giant cut. No, because the cavity where the blood's at is on the inside of the ribs, right? So when the Broadhead blew through it, the blades like moved narrow, went through the ribs, opened back up, smoked the lungs, hit the other side of the ribs. The ribs are only about, even on a big mature buck, like a 7 or 8 year old deer like we shot, even on the other side, they still are going to close down before blowing through the ribs. The penetration, the arrow flew 25 or 30 yards on the other side of Kirk's animal and was sticking out there. And it was just, I couldn't believe the penetration. You can't have everything. You can't have, I want this giant cut that cuts all the way through all the ribs and then, creates this. I want sharp blades, which the Beast is. I want the penetration I never had with a Rage because I'm getting old. I'm only shooting 55 pounds on my bow. And then I want to make sure that if I do screw up and hit them in the leg or the shoulder or off the scapula or whatever, I want that penetration with that blade to go in and around and through the shoulder blade and stuff. So like I'm trading this giant slap cut, blood flying all over, for this Beast to go through, go between the ribs, open back up, do all of its damage, and then out the other side. Dude, these deer didn't go a combined total of 150 yards, both of them, and were completely dead. And these were the biggest of the biggest bodied 250-pound animals that you can shoot in Illinois. So then my deer, I shot with the 2-blade. He was at 5 yards. I was using 55 pounds, and I shot this Broadhead between the neck and between the shoulder and went down into the cavity. Very hard shot. I talked about in the last podcast, episode 12, right?
Yeah, episode 12.
And went down, and it went down into the cavity. I took out the top of the the arteries where it comes off the lungs and heart and runs up, went down in there, poked that, and then went down into kind of the leg pocket, and the deer was just toast. So
I was going to ask too, like, would you have
a lot of poundage.
Would you have even tried to do that shot if you would have had like a fixed blade?
If I had With a fixed blade, yes. Let's say, well, at that distance, you're not going to get any planing, all the stuff that I'm worried about with a fixed blade.
Yeah.
Like
Because you were so close.
Because it was so close, it didn't have time to do anything.
Because you had to be pretty accurate on that shot.
That thing I had to hit the top of this coffee cup for sure. If not, just like this little handle, I had to be so precise. But if you asked me 6 years ago, I had a Rage Extreme on the tip of that, and I was only shooting 55 pounds out of my bow with a Rage Extreme, never taken the shot. I would have never got the penetration because that's just too big a cut, right?
Yeah.
But with that confidence that I was so confident in how sharp that beast was, I did not question it 1 minute because I thought, man, dude, if I just threw this at this deer right now, it would puncture into his skin because it's so sharp. There is a new technology that they have that it is not comparable to any of these other expandables because it's so dang sharp.
Yeah, and this is not a paid advertisement.
This is.
I wish it was, but
this is not. I heard a lot of guys talk about Sever. I know Josh has got a relationship, I think, with Sever. People are talking to Sever. When they first came out, I looked at them. They've got really good, precise stuff. They did not trip my trigger. I reached out to them early in their little career, I think before they sold, but like they weren't my jam. And I don't really know much about them except for I don't like the hybrids. I don't like the hybrid broadheads out there. Just give me a good old fashioned Grim Reaper or Nap Sidewinder, or I don't know. That was a rocket, but some big expandable that flies good. I'll shoot them in the liver all day long and find them. The big difference to me, guys, is the 55 pounds because my shoulders hurt. That I traded that. I want the expandable, but I need the sharpness of that beast to avoid that bone so that 55 pounds does its job. And this is a good discussion because this is real in the field stuff.
Yeah.
And that, there's a picture of that arrow going down at that angle. Most people would have probably taken that shot, but realize that I'm an OG archery gangster. Like I can make that shot a million times. I've done arrow fliction videos on YouTube, I think, of me taking that shot between that shoulder, between that neck, and going down into that cavity. So that's kind of my review. I told the guys on Facebook that I would kind of do a play-by-play review of it. It's I can, my brain. I cannot get over the fact that I am scared to death of the sharpness of the beast. And I think that in my head, that sharpness is such a game changer above everything else that's out there, even the fixed blade stuff. It's sharper than a scalpel. It is so sharp that I'm scared to touch it. And that gave me the confidence to make that shot and put it down in there. It's pretty scary, man. That sharpness will go a long ways in cutting an artery and doing some more damage. I just think people are so used to all these other broadheads for so long just not being sharp.
Yeah. Well, okay, so we're going to get into some more questions, and this episode especially, we want to make sure that we're going to get through a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. If you are interested in being part of the show, you can call. A lot of people have called. I mean, literally hundreds of people have called, but we call it the landline, so 309-761-5263. That's 309-761-LAND for land. Also go to bracketshow.com, bracket with 2 T's. So why don't we listen to a few questions here?
Okay.
Hey, Chris, this is Derek from Indiana. I have a question about decoys. When do you start using them? How exactly do you set them up, and how do you get them as scent-free as possible? Okay. I'm not talking about the mounted dope on the decoys. I'm talking about the Dave Smith decoys.
Yep, I got a Dave Smith.
How long do you think it takes to get them scent-free after you get them? Thanks. Love the show.
Man, Indiana again. Awesome. Love it. All right, decoys. I was hoping we get this question. All right, decoys, here's the deal. The spray works. O3 oxygen, unstable oxygen 3 molecules known as ozone works. Okay? What I do is about, when did I do that? Last week? Last week I took my decoys out of the package, or no, not out of the package, out of the garage. Took some blinds out of the package. I took my decoys out. Dauphina's sitting out. So if you ever hear about Dauphina, Chris, you don't know her, but she is a mounted bedded doe decoy that looks so real that all my friends, I take pictures with her, like me, like that Forrest Gump picture. It's where him and his son are looking out. It's like me and Dauphina looking out.
Nice.
I take pictures of her on my porch, and people are like, "Why is there a deer bedded on your porch?" I'm like, "Well, she's a decoy." I have a Dave Smith decoy. Or is she? Don't. The game wardens will show up. I got to have like a deer.
I mean,
Stop it. Stop. You get me in trouble. No, if I had a pet deer, which one day I will, I have to buy a permit. They're not very expensive. I'll have a pet deer one day. I take the decoys, I set them out, I let them get rained on. I will spray inside and out with as much like sodium benzenol, like scent killer spray as I can, right? Like they got stuff that's like spray, let it dry and go hunt. The more of that liquid you can get on it, the better. The problem is some of that stuff leaves residue. To me, I'm a let me get it dirty kind of guy. And what I mean by that is if I've got a mud puddle or if I've got fresh dirt, if I'm worried about scent on it, I will take fresh dirt with a shovel. I will take food plotty, clover, whatever I've got to do, and I kind of rub it into it, or if I can, I kind of put it on it. There's something about that dirt that, one, I think it dulls the shine on it. Deer are dirty. I think it kind of dulls the shine on it a little bit. I also like the fact that earthy tone and that dirt a lot of times will mask whatever plastic smell is coming off of it. And the main thing is I spray it down, I leave it outside, I let everything happen to it. Another thing that I think people overlook is you can get a bunch of your leaves, like maple leaves, all the leaves in your yard. I think if you tarped up that decoy, right, sprayed it down, tarped up that decoy, and kind of wrapped it up in the tarp with a bunch of your decaying kind of leaves and stuff, that's another way to kind of just blend it in more with nature. And then let's see some of the other tactics I've used. It's definitely a big key on like wearing gloves to put it up. One of the gloves that I have wore in the past is to go get like decoy gloves. The waterfowlers use decoy gloves that go all the way up, like, gutting gloves, but they're kind of reusable. They go up to like your bicep. I would always roll those up in a Ziploc bag, keep in my pocket, get out there, put those on, then grab my decoy, spray it down. I'm a big proponent of not putting that decoy out very far from me. Like, they're always going to come downwind, but I'm not going to put that decoy out like 60 yards because they're normally, the bigger deer I've had normally come in from the side. I'm going to put that decoy pretty tight to me so I can actually shoot that bigger deer off to the left or to the right of it. When I'm hunting on that edge of that field, you'll see a lot of people like go to the, blow their scent way into the woods, where I'm like blow my scent kind of down the edge of the woods and that decoy up kind of further in front of me. Every time I got to make sure that scent cone from that decoy is straight to me. I think when we talk about decoys, the most important is your footprints and your touching the decoy to walk it out there to its spot rather than the decoy smell itself. I think you can leave it outside and spray it and I think us transporting it from our truck, gasoline, the bed of our truck, things like that, I think you're better off to take like a tarp or something and keep that baby tarped up and kind of that way keep the scent off of it in transport. what's his name? I didn't catch his name.
I'm trying to. I don't.
He's from
recall.
Indiana, but anyways, like I think the scent comes into play. Realize I'm working through this because I really care about this question, but I think you keep it tarped up. I think it's the transport and the transfer of smell from your hands and your boots going out to set the decoy up that they would smell rather than I think you're doing a fine job if you were just to leave it out in the rain at your house and in the leaves and in the dirt. I think it's that last minute transfer of that scent from your hands and from your boots setting it up that will trigger that deer to respond. And while we're on decoys, I always hunt over a buck decoy first in this time of year. I will start a decoy anywhere from October 31st all the way through probably about that 18th. I will hunt over a decoy, and I will hunt over that decoy facing me or quartering at me at my tree stand. I don't like them facing away from me. I don't like them. I'm not worried about that deer looking at that deer and going, where is that deer looking? I am worried about that deer coming in and giving me an opportunity broadside as he circles around downwind of the decoy. So I'm always going to put the decoy about 20 yards and under, and I'm going to put him quarter facing my stand, which means his face and his head is toward my stand, but just a little off from it. You can kind of picture how a deer is going to come into it because the decoy, like that Dave Smith he's talking about, has got his head cocked. And whatever way that head's cocked, that's normally the way that deer is going to come in. So, he's got his head kind of cocked and his body kind of rotated in with his posture. So I kind of put the body maybe pointing off center from my position, but that head's kind of facing my tree stand. That deer is going to sidestep that sucker. And every deer that sees it's going to try to come in downwind. And remember this, while you're in the rut, and let's say a doe comes in and doesn't like your decoy and goes, that's not real, and she blows the whistle and blows, the doe sounding a blowing sound at the decoy, that crap happens all the time in the woods. When the chase is on, a lot of times the big mature does, the fussy ones, will blow all the time for no reason because she knows if I blow, something's going to move, a predator is going to come out of the bushes, or all the deer are going to run, and then that predator is going to make a move. So if you just stay still, let that doe pick apart, because as that doe starts blowing and stomping and blowing and stomping at that decoy, as long as she doesn't have the wind, she's going to blow and stomp looking at that decoy. What is she doing? She is telling the world, hey, all you bucks out there that are looking for chicks, I'm a chick and I'm over here. Like she's giving away her position. So don't lose any confidence if a doe starts blowing at that decoy. I need you to think about the fact that all the bucks on the planet are running around looking for these does, and she's giving up her cover to blow at your decoy because she is being, crabby at that decoy, and she's trying to smell rat, while at the same time she's giving off like her location, and those other bucks will pick up, hey, there's other deer over here, I'm going to head over there to check that out. Sometimes you can use it to your advantage. So don't get freaked out at that. I would use the sodium benzoyl spray. I would use a tarp. I'd keep that baby tarped up or bisqueened or whatever. And use your gloves. You can use a doe decoy. A doe decoy is fine. I'm just a buck decoy kind of guy. I'm going to play the card where I can rattle or snort wheeze at them to get their attention rather than a doe just standing out there not moving. So, yeah.
Okay, here, check this out.
Hey, Chris. My name's Andrew from Virginia. Man, I want to know, what's the deal with the caliber of deer? 10, 15 years ago, man, when I was growing up, you saw 170, 180-inch deer get killed, and dude just dreamed of that Midwest hunt. Yep. Now it's like all of our media outlets, if you're not killing a 200-inch deer now, you're not doing anything. Our perspective, where's it gone, man? And I want to know, dude, like these places, are they managing that well, or like is this talk and rumor of people buying breeder bucks and sticking them on these farms? Like what's going on, man? Appreciate you, dude.
Well, it's definitely happening. Introducing new genetics is absolutely happening. I talked about this with my friends in my inner circle about the big deer that I killed. You got to kind of ask yourself, are we warping what a big deer is because of the monetary buy? You know, I can't. Chris, if I want to kill a 200-inch deer, I know right now that I could go hustle, sell a couple pieces of land, make 20 grand. Okay. I could, without kids, I could go do a side hustle, mowing lawns or whatever, and I could make $20,000. If I put my brain to it, I go take $20,000 and I could go put a bounty out to find me a 200-inch deer, and then I could go hunt it, take all the credit, kill that 200-inch deer, and then put it all over social media, and it gets shared 100 million times, and I finally killed a 200-incher. And that is happening. If you look at
clarify,
yeah,
that exact thing is not happening. You are not doing that.
Yeah, that's happening. I
But
mean,
other people are doing that.
I don't know. Maybe I should make 20 grand to go kill a 200-incher and prove that this is real.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
I could. I probably could do it for cheaper. Somebody I know would help me prove the point. They got a big deer that they maybe couldn't kill or whatever, and they'd like to see if I could try to do it. I know that that's happened. That invite's been there. I think there's a two-part question. Yes, 100% the genetics are being introduced. That is happening. Look at Ohio. I know for a fact right now, I have more pictures of 200 to 300-inch deer in Oklahoma right now since they have started the new law where deer can be introduced with the genetics of these breeder buck status. Oklahoma, it's happening right now. I want to have Matt Owens on the show with maybe even a snippet, or when he comes to town, and he can tell us about what's happening down there. He's got a lot of friends down there. But Oklahoma is absolutely letting out breeder bucks, and those breeder bucks are breeding animals. And I know of 7 deer that I know of personally that are 220 to 300 inches in the wild. They're not in fences, in the wild. And remember, Oklahoma.
Okay, so you need to be watching too, because you're using air quotes here.
Air quotes.
Yeah, air quotes.
Air quotes.
So if you're listening, you don't know that he's doing that.
Yeah, Oklahoma, air quotes. They are doing that in Oklahoma. Also realize, ready for this? These farms or ranches in Texas have been killing 200-inch deer, low fence, air quotes, high fence, air quotes, for years. The Cactus Jack rants where all the people are going, air quotes again, all the 200-inch killing big deer. And there's a lot of low fence stuff that have introduced genetics that are way over 200. Fastest way to kill a 200-inch deer right now is to go to a low fence, air quotes. I'm doing air quotes.
There's a lot of air quotes happening right now.
That's
the name of this episode.
This,
episode 13. Chris uses air quotes.
200-inch deer, tons of them are being killed in Texas all the time by people you know, people I know that went down there and didn't realize, oh crap, this is high fence, but it's not really high fence because there's a section that's low fence, right? And they're not real, they don't go to these ranches and go like, hey guys, just to let you know, I'm about ready to hunt Texas in these giant high fences and then kill one of these deer and then, it's a management deer, but it scores 160 and it's an 8-point frame. And some of your most followed YouTubers and outdoor channel people are hunting low fence, air quotes, Texas deer and or Ohio deer and or Oklahoma deer that are not wild stock genetic animals. And it's a fact. Look at the animal. Look where they tagged where the animal has been killed, especially the Texas ones. The Texas one will tell you all you need to know, and then follow that back, and then call them, and then ask them, is it a low fence or high fence, and hasn't had any other stuff? You can, if you really wanted to, you can track it down. It's just not being talked about. And then the other thing is that I went to a property that was 1,400 acres. The gentleman is doing great work on his property. His dream is to get this property back to what it was in 1985 in Illinois. He looked at me and asked me, he's like, do you ever think I'll be able to do it? And I said, absolutely not. Now, do I think that he can grow bigger deer on the top end than he could grow back in 85? Yes. Why? Nutrition, food, habitat, and then passing that deer over and over. But the wildness of the age class of animal getting to 160, 170, having that high grade talk, if we have that high grade talk, the problem is you'll get a deer on camera, and because of cameras and because of food plots and because of being able to really just have a look at what's on your farm, you can key in on that deer and kill him so much easier. Like, there's not a deer in Illinois that isn't on a trail camera. My deer on my farm are on 5 different people's trail cameras in that square mile. You know, Luke, Derek, Nick, Mark, and then whoever yahoos that hunt the corner part of that parcel all have the same deer that I have that I'm chasing on camera at any given day. The other day when I went and hunted at my farm, I knew that my big one and my other one, Diamond and Donger, were a mile north of me because the neighbors sent me pictures and said, hey, they're all up here. And I was like, well, not going to kill them on my farm, but at least that meant I could invade my farm to go hunt, and I killed that other deer. But the other part of that is there's not a deer that's not on a trail camera somewhere. The trail cameras are going to tell you when it's ripe to be killed. Let me give you this for instance. If a bunch of 20-year-olds that, let's say, that were going hunting in, I should say 22-year-old legal to go out to the bars, are out at cruisins on Farmington Road, and they're out there partying, and they got a band there, and they can stay out till 2, and then they go downtown Peoria till 4 a.m. and it gets sunrise at 6, and they go straight to the tree. Most of the time when I was a young crazy person downtown Peoria till 4 a.m., if I would have got a trail camera when I was at cruisins after my second beer and with my buddies, and I got a trail camera picture that went off while I was scrolling, and this big buck was on my property on his feet, checking all my scrapes at 10:30 or 11 o'clock when I just went out, I would shut my phone, tell my buddies buy them around, and leave and go home, get in bed, get up the next morning and go hunt my property. That's how cell cameras changed the game. If it's now, that's what's happening now. When I was young, if I would have went out, I'm out. I'm not getting any notifications that deer are on my farm at all. So if I'm going out on Friday and my buddies can, go, hey, this girl likes you, let's go downtown and dance, and we'll stop at Richard's and get food afterwards and whatever, I would have stayed out all night long. I would have never went home, got some sleep, and got up and went hunting. And so that is happening. That has changed the culture of, if my phone goes off and the right deer shows up at my property, he came home from a mile north of me and he's on my farm hitting all my scrapes. If I'm there in the morning, my odds of killing him are 80%, right? So you're high grading that deer. You didn't quit hanging out with your buddies for a deer that scores 120 inches that's 7 years old. Like I killed 130-inch deer. But if that super mega superstar 4-year-old 200-incher shows up, he dies. And the other thing is what he's talking about is the Don Higginses of the world, the Spook Spans of the world, these people that only hunt 200-inch deer, really. Like, if you asked them, what are you after? I'm like, I'm only hunting 200-inch deer. I may only be around for another 10 years or whatever. I want to spend my life hunting 200-inch deer. With no apology, that's what they want to do, chase giants. That is not most of us. Most of us are more like you, and you got to think of how many animals aren't on social media. If we're watching social media and we're watching TV shows, most of the garbage that's on television is all product. Last night, I'm sitting there. I'm skinning.
Not this show.
What do you mean?
We're not all just product. Continue.
No, but I got to look this up. That's why.
No, I continue. You're good. I'm just saying, not the Brackett show.
No, not the Brackett show. But here's what Luke has to say about this show and why this show is different. My friend Luke said, "This is who you are." He said, "Chris, you are a contrarian and a person who opposes and rejects popular opinion, especially in stock exchange dealings. And this has become fashionable in the stock market, a contrarian, right? Opposing or rejecting popular opinion." I would say that's me. Yeah. And so I'm against the flow. I'm against the establishment. I'm against Tink 69 and all the bull crap sense and this tell me the truth about where you're really hunting 200-inch stuff. There's a lot of people, I think, out there that are just happy shooting a 120 and then not telling anybody about it and just keeping to themselves. The 170s of the world and all the stuff that you heard about in the Midwest, I don't think was real back in the day. I lived here. I can tell you I've lived in Illinois my whole life. And until about 20 years ago, I didn't start shooting really, really high scoring animals. When I hunted here in the glory days, I watched more 130 deer die and 140 deer die than ever. And I think you only heard about the legendary stuff in the articles because you didn't have all of it. Case in point, my crazy butt decided to just post a bunch of pictures of my 180s and 160s and 170s over the last couple of years, and people were completely confused whether they were this year or before, and they congratulated me like I killed them last week. I mean, last week, according to the internet, I killed like 4 170s, and everybody congratulated me on it. So if I was to go back and answer that question, I think it's fake news. I think it's fake news. It's harder to kill or even grow a 160-inch animal. I don't have one deer because Donger broke his brow tines off. I don't have one deer over 160 inches on 2,000 acres that I can hunt. Not one deer. So to tell me that they're all 200 inchers, that's fake news. Or that's the new goal. And they're around every corner. I'm hunting 2,000 acres that have 0 160 deer on my farms to hunt. So I think people need to get ready for the new age, which is mature 5, 6, 7-year-old animals that if they're 5, 6, 7-year-old animals, they score 127 to 143. And that's the new norm, and you all better get used to it because it's the gospel. It's the deer gospel. That's what's happening with the world. Everybody's high-graded all these young giants. Every time a young giant shows up on a trail camera, he dies. He gets wounded or dies. So I'm with you on the whole, where did they go? What did they do? What's real and what's not? And so I'll be a contrarian and I'll try to figure out how to get to the bottom of it while we're on this adventure.
All right. Well, here, this question, I don't know, just picturing it in my mind made me laugh. So let's see what you think.
Yeah, okay. This is Chris from Illinois. I was just wondering, on places that you can't get into super quiet, what does he think about making turkey noises as you walk in to kind of cover up your walking, to cover up the walking sound? Just kind of wondering thoughts on that.
Yeah,
Thanks.
No, that's my buddy Chris. It's a good question. I got some tricks for that.
Have you tried that sort of thing before?
Oh yeah, I've tried it all. So
I guess I should have figured
when
that.
I was a young man and I could run through me and Chris, they just called. We're not running through the timber. When we were younger, we would have. So my number one secret when I was a young guy, I would grab my bow. It'd be me and a cameraman, and we would close your eyes again. This is another banana bread deal. Close your eyes.
All right, eyes closed.
Okay. Picture me and a cameraman. Me and Lane cameraman Lane is behind me, and I'm like, grab the camera really heavy, really hard, and grab your backpack and with the camera arm in it, and I'll grab my bow and my rattling antlers. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna run through the woods like I'm a buck chasing a doe, or a doe and a fawn running through the woods. So we would gallop at the cadence, stop, and we would run 200 yards through the leaves and through the woods with that stomping and the leaves. That we would actually do that
with
and
an intentional cadence, and not just not just running, but like doing it in a certain rhythm.
Because if you can picture, like if you went up to the park up on the bluff, right, or that way, and you were to be out there and you spooked a doe and a fawn, right, and they got up and they ran through the leaves, they would have a certain cadence to them, bouncing through it, right? And if you were a sound guy like you or me with my real right brain too, we can kind of picture that artsy kind of. And so one of the tricks that we would do is that. And if you're a young guy and you got a saddle and you're wiry and like to run, when I was 20, man, that's what I would do is I would run through the woods up and down, taking pauses, going through anything to not sound I said this the other day, bipedal.
Yeah.
Which is a two-legged animal walking through the woods. You want to sound like have you heard squirrels make crazy noises? Like running and tumbling and, and they're chasing each other. That's that cadence too. Like you're going through. And so if Chris was talking about like a way to get to a stand because it's kind of noisy or especially in the middle of the afternoon, I know for a fact that you can pick up a long stick that maybe had you cut it and it had like on the front of it a couple little branches, and you just picked through. Picture a bunch of turkeys walking through. What they do, Chris, is they actually like scrape the ground, move the leaves, and then look for acorns, and they look for bugs while they scrape. So if you were to take your time walking through the woods, the answer to Chris is yes, you could go through. You could actually make it more realistic because you have it. Technically, it's turkey season during deer bow, so you can even go through and go. And brush away the leaves as you walk with your stick kick them in cadence with a turkey walking and feeding, and you could take your time walking to your stand and even call a little bit just every once in a while, not too much, and walk to your stand and on those real quiet days. So he's 100% right, using his imagination, doing that. But I would always pick the run 5 yards, stop. Run 5 more yards, stop. More squirrely, I can get there faster, or more deer chasing deer kind of thing.
Sure. Yep. It's funny. I think maybe it was this episode. I was earlier talking about the Swedish tongue twister. That's my grandma who grew up on a farm in Iowa. And she would do like, I wouldn't call it a turkey call, but she would do these turkey sounds like, well, see, yours sound real, but I can just imagine like every step going,
yeah, so you would never
like,
gobble.
That's what makes me laugh was like in my mind, that's what I'm thinking. So
you were picturing more cartoon turkeys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, and so I'm like, no, when you hear turkeys, they're literally walking through the leaves, looking for bugs, going, just little bitty calls and going around going, scratching leaves and going through there and, but I'm a bigger fan of run 5 yards, jump a couple times. But now you want to know imagination. If I'm picturing my friend Chris or me doing this, especially Chris right now, I'm laughing out loud in my brain right now because picturing Chris all camoed up with his bow, jumping like Peter Cottontail through the woods.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is maybe one of the funnest.
Okay, so it's not completely crazy for me to find that humorous to think about. But it's effective. So I guess it can be funny and effective at the same time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right, here's another question.
Hey Chris, this is Austin from Wisconsin. I was just wondering what your opinion was, or if you could answer this question on how to I guess, become friends with your neighbors, or how to get your neighbors to shoot bigger deer and convince them to shoot older deer. In Wisconsin, it seems like everybody's got their 40 and their 80, and
so's Illinois, bub.
we have 280 acres, and it's a fairly bigger piece in Wisconsin. And we just every year we have so many really nice 3.5s and some 4.5s, and it's hard to get them to live to get older. And I guess what are some things you can do if your neighbors don't cooperate to hold more deer on your property, I guess. So thanks, Chris. Love what you do, and thank you. Bye.
Well, this is where the consult comes in. Proof positive that on 100 acres, I can grow 5 deer over 5 years old that I didn't think was possible years ago. Years ago, I started out with this quest of food, cover, leaving 80% of my farm alone, not blowing my wind into there. And I have a lot of neighbors that hunt. I've got an 80 on the back, a friend of mine, his dad, and 3 kids, I think. Yeah, 3 kids. On the other side, I've got a guy and his friends. Then on the other side, I've got a permission piece that has everybody that's ever asked 30 years ago and to today that just invade and kill. Every brown is down, and then the deer run onto me, and then they got to track. They want to track them. I don't let them come onto my property, and they just blast them, and they just do whatever, shoot whatever. And I only have 100 acres, and then north of me, I have a really good neighbor that he's been a longtime friend with my wife. So, and so I have a problem situation there, which is I have a couple good neighbors and a couple crappy neighbors. It's always the ones that either own the property or that are more the woodsmen that are the better farms, or are the better properties that will let the deer get older. The ones that are just takers, those are just the permission people for the last 30 years. Oh, it's tradition. We've always just been out there and we shoot them. It's just like anything else. We're not going toward the same goal, and they're at a point where they're just taking off there. I don't see them out there, helping me with my property, which is feeding the deer next door, right? So you have your work cut out for you. Here's what I can tell you about the neighbors. They don't believe you. They don't believe you. If you were telling them you're not going to shoot this deer, they're not going to pass up that deer because they don't believe you. We live in 2024. They don't trust you. They don't believe you. And yes, you might not shoot it, but your friend might shoot it. And no one trusts anyone. My neighbors know that their best odds of killing a Boone and Crockett whitetail are to have me as a neighbor because of the caliber of age of structure that I'm going to shoot and what I truly am and what my lifestyle is. And they believe it. So they are the smart ones if they were to let them walk. I think that if there was some way for them to trust you, that's the only way a neighbor would let one walk, is that if you said, like, this guy's off limits. But to them, like that 3-year-old that I have with flyers and kickers, whatever, it's human nature just to kill that thing because he's so cool. I've never killed one like that. It's the same way as if we have rifle season in Illinois, which we do now. There's a lot of people that have killed hundreds and hundreds of deer for years with a slug gun and with a bow that went, I've never killed a deer with a rifle. Oh, let me test this out. Let me see what this does. It's legal. They can do it. But should they just be shooting one just to shoot one? I never killed a buck with my muzzleloader, so they shoot one with a muzzleloader. They shoot one with a rifle. Here's what I can tell you that is the only bona fide real deal trick that I know. That is why I created my consulting job. My consulting job from January until about June, I travel the country and I spend day or days at a property between the prices of in-state, some of the in-state stuff that's real close, I'll go as low as like $3,800. Most average prices across the country or in the Midwest are $5,500 and $7,500. That will get you a plan that I have proven over and over and over and over success, that I can take that 280 acres or 200 plus acres and create sections to completely leave alone. Here's the problem with most of the way that everything is set up is you're not leaving a place where those deer conditionally for 10, 15 years or 2 or 3 years know generationally that they can go get away from the pressure from the neighbors. You're creating pressure and they're creating pressure. You're creating pressure so those deer leave. Exact reason why when we were talking about last episode, when I killed this big 6, 7.5-year-old deer, I made room to keep the 3-year-olds on my farm to get older and to get bigger because I had to make room by killing this older animal. On 100 acres, because of the switchgrass, because of the miscanthus, because of how the woods are left alone, the hinge cutting, the traps on the outside, someone like yourself and a couple people in your family can enjoy the 280 acres. Hunting easier. Is easier the right word? They're not having to put in as much work and invade the property as much. And there's, you know, there's 100 clients of mine that you could call and say, is this worth it? And the way you got to think of it is how much is that buck worth to you? Like to me, a buck, if I'm going to get a lease on a property, is worth $3,500 for a buck on a property. So to me, I'm going to pay the $5,500 or $7,500, depending on how many acres. I'm gonna come there. We're gonna go through everything. We're gonna create a plan for not only year 1, year 5, and year 10, but we're gonna get you to a place where your deer have places on your 280 that they can get away from you and they can get away from your neighbors. That is the only foolproof way I know of, is to have somebody that has proven it on their own land and time again on people's properties in the Midwest and especially in Wisconsin and Illinois, that you can create these safety and the security properties where you're feeding and housing animals starting as a fawn and growing them up to these older classes. Because right now, if we were to come and put a play in right now on your property, you're taking deer that are running kind of wild, that aren't trained, and you're trying to convince them to stay in the fenced-in yard, and that doesn't necessarily happen. Half those will be able to survive, but really it's to turn the property around 5 years from now and start growing these fawns that are leaving their moms right now in November, and they're creating their own home areas, and they're staying on your farm because it's the best habitat, it's unpressured, and you're only hunting them in certain locations. Having that TV experience where I shot that big deer the other day at 5 and 6 yards because you're creating that experience that he has to come by at 5 or 6 yards. That's not a coincidence. That is how we're growing these animals, right? So the only thing to answer that question is I don't know how to get along with neighbors. I'm really hard to get along with, especially about property lines. But if you'll take an hour and listen to me as my neighbor, and I can tell you with the utmost confidence of what I'm talking about and show you the proof is in the pudding, then we're going to be on the same page, most likely. You know, and if they don't want to play my game, guess what? I either sell it and buy something that I can control, or I just go, well, it's now a free farm, and if you're going to kill everything, I'm going to get my nephews. I'm going to teach Chris how to hunt. I'm going to go get this veteran that called me to ask me to go hunt, and we're going to slaughter everything, and nobody's having any fun. And you can go, well, that's petty, and be like, no, you're making the rules for the block of timber. We're all sharing these deer. They're not mine. We're all sharing them. And I'm going to either make the best habitat I can by taking all of my personal Chris Brackett knowledge of doing this for the last, 40 years and 8 years really effectively. and I'm going to put that plan in play, or I'm going to say, well, that's it. I'm just going to slaughter them too and have it be a fun farm. And I'm going to go buy 60 acres up the road that butts up against somebody that does have the same management as me. And I'm going to be able to grow bigger deer on that 60 and have my 280 that's a fun farm, because I can't get along with my neighbors and my neighbors are going to blow it up. So if my neighbors ever freaked me out, I'll kill them all. I can buy as many doe tags as I want. I can buy deprivation tags, and I can get as many friends that are killers, and we'll kill every small buck on the place. So, like, I think you have to be at the point where you either are like, well, this 280 isn't for me, but it's generational land or whatnot. There's a lot of elements that come into play there. So, I'm telling you that it's discouraging, but there is a way. But most of it comes down to you have to hire a professional. I'm $350 an hour online or boots on the ground. Come there and you can say, I'm going to make this commitment. In 5 years from now, there's as close to a guarantee as possible. You're going to have these bigger deer and your wishes, but it just takes putting a plan in place from somebody that's already done it.
Yeah. Okay. I got a few quick things to say here. First off, if you go to brackettsshow.com, you can find a form to fill out if you're interested in a consultation. Okay. There's information right there. So that's to what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Second of all, I mean, if you're trying to convince someone of kind of the right way to go about things, you could encourage them to watch the Brackett show.
Yeah.
I mean, we got some good info. Check it out. And
it may be a commonality that they can discuss.
I mean, you guys, we have viewing parties, and maybe not. But then the last thing that I'll say is you were talking about making sure you're developing a property. You're talking about with a consult, and a great way to do that is the way that you've partnered with White Gold and thinking about your food plots and that. So why don't you share a little bit about White Gold?
Well, so White Gold's been a partner of mine for quite a while, almost a decade, and they just have really great fresh seed, mineral, and feed that you can have delivered to your door. They're out of Michigan. This one right here that I'm holding is Clover Rush. It's a perennial blend of clovers that will last 6 to 7 years if well maintained with IMOX and things like that. There is a lot of seeds out there that are good quality seeds, but I just don't trust companies now in 2024 to deliver true good seed to somebody's door. But I do trust White Gold. White Gold lets me make up my own blend. Here is a switchgrass blend called Fort Knox. This bag will cover 1 whole acre, and they have everything from clover to alfalfa to switchgrass to cover. Like an Egyptian wheat. It's called Green Monster. We have a great brassica blend, and they're just a sweet company to be a part of that has quality seed delivered to your door. Check them out at White Gold Seed, whitegolddeerfeed.com, and you can go to our website, Brackett.
With 2 T's?
With 2 T's, The Brackett Show or brackettshow.com, and check them out and have links to everybody. You even got the link to the Lowdown, which is my high-speed trail camera viewer that I've been using. It's got a 9-inch HD color touch screen. It's Lowdown, the Hunter's Mate. What'd you say it was? Wausau?
Wausau. I think it's Wausau.
Wausau, Wisconsin, lowdownviewer.com. I love this thing. This is where I can put in my SD cards, even from my cell cams, and I can go through them, play them on the big HD television hooked into this thing and show all my friends what deer we're going after and watch the videos and pick which ones I want and then send them to the larger card to hold. So check those out. That's the Lowdown, the lowdownviewer.com. Check them out. They're also on the website. And I'll give you a lowdown right now about, what to look for as we're going from the 8th to about, Veterans Day on the 11th or so. You're really just going to, pull out all the stops. You're going to be getting ready for gun season in a lot of places. Hopefully we've got cold weather temps by then. You got a little decoying, you got a little rattling action, you got a little calling action. Your food plots are going to start coming into play the closer we get to Thanksgiving. They just are. If you're still after that buck, you haven't tagged out yet, you're just going to be really concentrating on where in the past years have you seen these bigger bucks travel. I want you to really pay attention to what you have seen in the past. Apply them to today, because bucks are a patternable animal more by being a creature of habit and traveling in areas that are notorious for either not having pressure or traveling from a thicket to another thicket and messing up on ridges and places where they're covering ground trying to find a new doe. If we're getting close to the lockdown period, you're just going to have to be the trail camera and sit long hours. Hopefully it's not too cold that you can stay there, but hopefully it's cold enough that the deer feel that they need to travel. As they come off of lockdown, you're going to be looking in at that first week of December when they have to eat again. And these are the things that is the lowdown for me, is that you're going to concentrate on, make sure you're sighting in your bow again. It's mid-season and things can get bumped. Fire an arrow before you go hunting once a day or once every other day. Make sure you're keeping those babies spot on and that your bows are sighted in. I mean, because you never know when one's getting bumped when you're walking through the woods or a peep sight gets twisted or whatever. That's kind of my lowdown tip right now, is just make sure your equipment's still spot on, Yeah. We got any more calls or?
We'll wrap up here in a second. Here, I'll give you a choice. Do you want a call from Oklahoma or from New York State?
I think the New York boys are fired up. Maybe we can get to both of them if I can answer them quick, but I never answer anything quick.
Hi, Chris and Chris. Good morning. Chris here in upstate New York, Oswego County area. Looking for some suggestions. Where we hunt, typically, we don't get out till gun season. We border northern zone and southern zone, which has two different start dates. Northern zone opens on October 26th. This year, southern zone doesn't open until November 16th for gun season. And one of our properties we hunt is literally one side of the road is northern, our side of the road is southern, and then the property we hunt a mile down the road is also southern. Any tactics on how to hunt that effectively, since deer have been getting chased around with gunshots and stuff like that since the middle of October, and we can't start until middle of November on our side of the road, or is that a positive, being maybe they've been pressured enough and pushed onto our properties? The one property we hunt is ag on both sides with a good amount of woods in the middle, about a 350-acre property. Just kind of looking for some suggestions on how to hunt that, and look forward to hearing from you and appreciate everything you guys do. Thank you so much.
Well, I think it's an easy one for me, anyways. I'm always gonna bet on the cup is half full. I'm gonna say.
Look at you being an optimist.
I am when it comes to deer. I think you have to be, otherwise you lose your mind on big boys. Eternal optimist on the deer never win. If I'm on your team as a consultant or a friend, or we're hunting the deer, the one thing I tell Kirk is he's from out east. I tell him that they just aren't going to win. They're not going to beat us. Not in the long run. We will get them. We will stay on point and on plan, and we will get them. So I guess what I got to say is this is a unique situation where you've got this part that's being hunted from October with a gun, and then you got this other part that's not. My guess is the gun side is going to get slaughtered. Knowing it's New York and knowing it's going to get slaughtered, I would actually be excited to take my bow in across the street in the bow zone and hunt the thicker multi-floor rows and stuff. Those bucks they know where the pressure's at. I would say most hunters are going to desirably go hunt the gun season across the road. Get that out of their system and get their deer dead and get their freezers full and all that stuff, leaving across the road to the bow guys, which are only the diehards. To me, that's an advantage. I'm working through that in my mind going, well, that's an advantage. If you can give a guy an easier path, they're going to pick the easier path. They're going to go slaughter the deer on the gun side and get that out of their system, and then they can go on to Thanksgiving and, get on to the rest of their lives. I feel like hunting nowadays is a check the box kind of thing. Got my buck, tagged out all my tags, got to tell my friends, got to have my experience, got to drink my beer on the weekend at deer camp, got to tell my stories, check that box and get out of there. If it were me, I would be looking at getting in that bow side, diving in deep, taking some rainy days. You guys are going to get, some weather. Whenever you get that weather, get out there and dive into those things and find that new detail, those bucks that came over from getting pressured from the gun season. I got to believe most of the does are going to go over the bow side. And I would just dive down, find some new areas and just commit and say, hey, I'm going to bow hunt these deer that are getting pushed over from this gun side. I'm going to pick apart this property. And this is something that's not going to be, don't look at it as just this year. Pick like what I'm saying, which is just, I'm going to bow hunt these deer in these thickets on this bow side that the gun people didn't get, that pushed over from the pressure. I'm going to be that guy that does that every year, and I'm going to figure that out for the next 10 years.
All right. we're going to try to fit in the Oklahoma one.
Hey, Chris. My name's Garrick. I'm here from Oklahoma, South Central Oklahoma. We just got off a big, long drought with some recent rain coming through. I have properties all over the state, extending from the Panhandle all the way down to southeastern Oklahoma. Nonetheless, we had a lot of rain early, creating a lot of acorns and things like that, a mass crop. I noticed early with the drought, we had persimmons that actually ripened early, talking like mid-September. Oklahoma being a baiting state, I have pins to keep the hogs out that I actually bait in, and I run cameras over that and off of trails and scrapes. But I've noticed that this year, deer that I normally gain, with this being the pre-rut, things starting to amp up, some of these bucks ain't showing up like normal, that I've had a couple years of history with, that I know that made it because either I found sheds or, obviously just trail camera pictures.
You are not alone.
So with this recent weather coming, I guess my question would be, should I kind of hold out? I got several mature deer that's got decent antlers, but I got some that should be booners that I know that should be showing up that hasn't yet. Should I hold out for that great big one? Or just truck along and be happy with a 5.5-year-old 140-inch deer? Thanks, man. Appreciate you bringing God into your podcast and your show. And thank you.
Man, that's cool. Oklahoma. All right. He's in the same boat as us. I don't know if he's got 2 bucks like we do in Illinois. I would tell him what we talked about in episode 12. Shoot a buck that needs to get off there, a 5.5-year-old 140, get him off there, and then wait for the bigger one that's going to come late in the season.
Plus, he said that he didn't see him on the cameras, but that doesn't mean they're not out there. Get out there, be the trail cam.
Yeah, same. He's in the same boat. First thing I got to tell you is, you're not alone. I'm in the same boat.
He's right there with you.
I'm in the misery with you, bro. I'm gonna tell you to wait. I'm going to tell you to wait. You're going to get the rains. The deer are going to come. I think they're fatter than they've ever been. I think they're in places that normally they're not because they have water in other places. I think they're all centralized up. I think they're going to get pushed out. If it's me and I'm wanting that big deer, you just got to be disciplined and wait. I think this episode tells you that you just have to make the decision and stick with it. There's no bad decision. Just sticking with that one. You can always change it later on. I don't think your 5-year-olds are going anywhere. It's not a competition thing with the feeders. You got to have the confidence that the one's going to come in that you left go last year, or somebody. You're in Oklahoma. I was talking about it earlier. There may be some deer that somebody let out somewhere and it got moving and got going. I think your big deer is still going to show up. I'm a eternal optimist when it comes to big bucks. And it's not like what the hunter guys were talking about this week is like, well, I'm hoping for a big buck to show up. You know that these deer lived. You know that they did. Stick with that. Stick with your gut. Know that they lived. Make a choice that you're going for a super giant trophy, or you're going to take out room and make room with one of these other 5-year-old 140s and be okay if that big old boy will show up. So I think it's your decision. My gut is at least one of your real big ones is going to give you a layup late in the season. I know that's going to happen for me. We talked about in episode 12 how fast it changes from deer depression. Depression, you said?
Yeah, someone said that. Yeah,
depression. Just get out of that funk. If they ain't showing up yet, go take the wife, go flip your brain, do whatever, and then be out in the woods like Chris said. He's becoming up. Look at the knowledge you're dropping.
I know.
I think you just go be the camera. Something's going to happen. I got to believe that those deer are around, and they're only going to come. Oklahoma deer, it's a bait state. Get in there. He's going to make one swoop in there, and you're going to be there sitting because you're a disciplined, stubborn mule like me.
And a monster will come around the corner.
And that thing's going to walk one time, and you're going to kill him. I'm going to make a prediction.
Oh.
My guy right here, if he makes the decision, I'm going to give him a challenge. I challenge you to wait till the 18th, the night of the 18th. Or the night.
Well, starting on the 13th?
No, night of the 15th.
15th, okay.
Midnight on the 15th, I want you to call the landline. I'll bet you kill one of your deer that haven't shown up yet. This is my challenge to you. I'll bet you the 13th, 14th, or 15th, if you give me those 3 days to hunt these ghost deer that haven't showed up yet from last year, and you're going to have one dead, and you call the landline on the night of the 15th.
And we will celebrate.
And let me know, and we will celebrate.
Yeah.
We will celebrate. Hey, can we celebrate with that thing that guy called in from?
Oh, man.
End the show with that. This is the way we're going to celebrate. Thanks, guys. This is the Brackett Show, and we're going to go out by one of the greatest fan call-in landline things ever. 309-761-5263. And you leave me a question or a message like this, and you will just make our day. We're going to go out on a bang, boys and girls. Here we go.
Here we go.
This is the greatest call of all time.
Chris and Chris, what's up, boys? I freaking love the show. It's great. It's been
We're going to
impacting
play
my
this at the
hunting
beginning
life
of every show. I know
in a
it.
great way. The zombie walk is real.
It's real.
It is real, Chris. You nailed it. And I got one thing.
Here we go.
God bless our troops.
Yes.
God bless America.
Yes.
And gentlemen, start your engines. Woo! It's sweet November, baby. Let's go.
Yeah. All right. Hey, thanks
Episode
for
13, Lucky 13. Give us a subscribe, a follow, click us, follow us all over. Chris Brackett, Brackett Show, BrackettShow.com. Thanks, everybody. This has been awesome.
All right,
Thanks, Chris.
Let's play it out.